Got a lot of notes, but I promise I will try to be as quick as I possibly can. I'll skip over many of the things unless you have questions on those. And so my name is Ross Maher. I'm a resident of North Providence, District 55, and I am the constituent of Representative Corvasi that asked him to sponsor this resolution. And I'm here to advocate in favor of HR 7182 and to provide analysis on this subject. But before I go further, I do have to acknowledge that there are some issues with the verbiage. And after consulting with Rep. Corvasi, I believe the term is a sub A, that we would need to follow that process to adopt the proper language. Excuse me. So that proper language would speak to three general topic areas, and those are to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, to limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and to limit the terms of office for federal officials as well as members of Congress. And it appears that you all have workstations. I hope that they're internet enabled, and I would recommend, if you can, to go to the Convention of States website because it'll validate much of what it is that I'm saying here. So under the proper language, 7182 is in fact a resolution for Rhode Island to join a call to hold a convention of states in accordance with Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. Currently, there are 19 states that have passed resolutions calling for this convention, and they discuss the exact same three topics only. This legislative season, there are 15 other states besides Rhode Island. New Mexico just filed last week, today. Both Iowa and Ohio held their respective committee hearings on the same subject. And of the 16 that are active this year, I just want to make a special mention of 5 of them. The reason why is because they have double-digit co-sponsors. So those being Illinois, which has 26 co-sponsors, Ohio has 21, Washington State has 23. And in the case of North Carolina, they've already passed this resolution through one of their houses. So these are the most likely in this legislative season that I think will make some type of, or my analysis rather, is that those would be the most likely to make some type of progress towards a full passage. So with that, anyone who wants to have a meaningful discussion about amending the Constitution in any way, shape, or form can only go to one place, and that's Article 5. You're not going to find that language in any other article or in any other amendment. I won't belabor the point of how we get there. I think we're all familiar with 2/3 of Congress or 2/3 of the states when either calls for a convention, then the convention is called to the specific subjects that they've asked for, as they're shown in the model legislation. Beyond that, I would ask you to just consider for a moment the current 27 amendments that we have all followed the same exact process, and ultimately, in the end, had to meet the same ratification standards as every other piece of the Constitution has, that being the 3/4 vote, 38 states in this case, a 3/4 vote in order to ratify. So again, I'm just kind of skipping through a lot of my notes for the sake of time. If you were to go to the website, you would notice that there's a tab along the top. It says simulations. The reason why I want to highlight this is that Convention of States Action as an organization has twice hosted a simulation, once in 2016, once in 2023. In the instance of 2016, there were 137 legislators that participated. In the case of the 2023 simulation, it was 99. Would anyone like to guess which state did not participate in the 2023 simulation? It would be Rhode Island. You would be correct. And it was actually Representative Matthew Fabish and Mr. William Perry who had attended back in 2016. As well, on that tab for the simulations, you'll be able to get the executive summaries. You'll be able to get all of the proposed amendments that came out of that simulation for you to digest. There are some rather interesting ones. I would say nothing crazy, but things that definitely place a lot of power, if you will, back where it belongs with the states versus with the federal government. I'm going to skip over the examples that I had. I do want to make a point that there is another website of interest here called the article5library.org. So it's article Roman numeral 5 library.org. They have 450 instances, 450 examples of states passing resolutions calling for a convention to speak about a very wide variety of topics. And I won't belabor the point as to what those might be. I'll just ask that you look at them yourself, but there's 450 examples. So this is not a process, if you will, that legislatures in the Congress and just government as a whole is not familiar with. It's been exercised quite a bit. So enough on the simulations. Just want to make sure I kind of hit all my key points before I move on. So there are generally three major points of opposition that tend to come up, and I'll just state them very quickly. One, there's never been a convention of the states before. So this is indeed a misstatement of facts. Our nation in reality has a very, very long history of states convening to resolve mutual issues dating all the way back to the 1600s. And some of those conventions have been held right here in this city. Even today, there is a dispute over the Colorado River and water rights that affects 7 states. As these states meet to work this issue through, this is a convening of the states. And I think that one can also make an argument that every day that the US Congress is in session is a group of people convening that are delegates from states to discuss issues concerning the country. So arguably, that is a convention of the states, but I digress. So people who say there's never been a convention of states, I would respectfully say that they're misinformed. The next one that comes up a lot is how do we ensure that this convention of states that we're calling for stays limited in its scope? This is a long answer, but I'll give you the very, very short version of it. The resolution itself that I'm asking you to pass stipulates 3 topics, and that's it. Any commissioner that goes beyond that is in violation of that resolution, period. End of story. There is no confusion, very black and white. With that, many states have passed what are called faithful delegate resolutions, basically a companion document to go along side by side with that, which stipulates how the commissioners will be chosen, what their scope is, the fact that they can be recalled by their state, and in some cases can be charged with crimes and civil penalties. So these states take this issue very, very seriously, and they want their commissioners to adhere to the scope to which they were approved through their initial resolution. In the case of Rhode Island, I would highly recommend that we also pursue a faithful delegate resolution. In my written testimony that I submitted to the clerk, I provided 5 examples of faithful delegate resolutions. I won't bother to say the names of those. Well, actually, Florida, Utah, Tennessee, South Dakota, and Wisconsin.
Okay, could you wrap it up soon as we have a lot of people?
Yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
I get it. And then the final thing, the infamous runaway convention, I'll give you the ultimate short answer. It never happened, and there never has been one. And we can discuss that at a later time if you are so inclined.